No one would have guessed that Joni Mitchell, a woman the world worships as a musical icon, once carried a past buried in silence for 41 years. It all began in 1954 when she was just a little girl. With her natural talent, Mitchell rose to become a name that defined the spirit of the 1970s. Yet, her melancholic, deeply personal songs mirrored a life that was anything but peaceful. From being stripped of her right to motherhood to enduring broken relationships with other music legends. The truth is far more complex than anyone imagined. Keep watching to uncover what shook the entire entertainment world. Don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. And meanwhile, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new untold stories about Hollywood stars. Smash that like button and hit the notification bell. Joni Mitchell was born as Roberta Joan Anderson on November 7, 1943 in Fort Malloud, Alberta. She was the only daughter of Myrtle Margaret, a Scottish-Irish schoolteacher, and William Andrew Anderson, a Norwegian-Canadian lieutenant in the Royal Canadian Air Force who trained pilots at the Fort Malloud base. From an early age, Joni grew up surrounded by the sound of airplane engines, her mother's folk songs and the faint smell of kerosene clinging to her father's uniform. Then one morning, fate struck without warning. She woke up in excruciating pain. Her legs no longer obeyed her. She had contracted polio, and the consequences were devastating. The little girl was transferred from the small Alberta town to a city clinic. In that cramped hospital ward, Joni heard the faint moans of other children, some of whom would never make it back. It was there, at the fragile edge between life and death, that 9-year-old Joni made a silent vow to survive. She endured agonizing physical therapy sessions, forcing herself to stand, then to walk, each small step like a half-finished melody. When she finally took her first steps again, the entire hospital burst into applause. Joni understood then if she could conquer this illness, nothing could ever break her. But as she grew older, the fire within her found a new path to burn. In high school, Joni cared little for textbooks. She wanted to live, not just learn. She smoked, roamed the streets with rebellious friends, and was drawn to music-filled nights and artistic dreams still taking shape. Though she nearly failed to graduate, she was accepted into an art school where Joni believed she'd find freedom. Yet, after just 1 year, she walked away, not out of failure, but because the world she sought couldn't fit inside those walls. During those wild, restless years, a new chapter began when Brad McMath, a blonde, daring young man, entered her life. Their connection wasn't born of deep love, but of curiosity and the youthful urge to chase what was forbidden. And when the thrill faded, Joni discovered she was pregnant. This time, it wasn't a physical illness like polio. It was an emotional storm that would change the course of her life forever. At age 20, Joni Mitchell left Saskatoon with nothing but an old suitcase and a few unfinished songs. To everyone, she said she was pursuing music, but the truth was far more painful. She was running away from home from the disapproving eyes of her parents to hide her growing belly. In the conservative Canada of the 1960s, being pregnant out of wedlock was an unforgivable stain. In Toronto, where she had hoped to find freedom, she instead found loneliness. On freezing winter nights, she sang in smoke-filled bars, earning pocket change and pitying smiles from strangers. Her boyfriend Brad, the one who had run away with her, fled overseas when things got tough, leaving her alone. When the time came to give birth, Joni held her baby girl, Kelly Dale Anderson, in a tiny, shabby room. The joy lasted only a moment. Joni knew she couldn't afford to raise her. She signed the adoption papers with trembling hands, feeling as if her heart were being torn apart. For someone who had once lived through polio and hospital isolation, that decision felt like sentencing herself to lifelong grief. Still, Joni held on to hope. She believed that if she became successful, she could one day bring her daughter home. That chance seemed to appear when Chuck Mitchell, a sophisticated American folk singer, entered her life. He spoke of stages, of Detroit, of a new life where she could perform, earn money, and finally reunite with her child. To Joni, Chuck wasn't just a man. He was her only ticket back to Kelly. They married in haste. On the stages of Detroit, their voices blended beautifully, as if destiny had brought them together. But behind the lights, their marriage soon unraveled. Joni, young and creatively fierce, dreamed of freedom through music. Chuck, older and more traditional, wanted her to stay within the lines. He couldn't understand the storm inside her, nor bear the fact that his wife was shining brighter than he was. One day, Joni brought him a new song, Both Sides Now, written in the midst of her emotional turmoil. Instead of encouragement, he laughed and called it naive and silly. She said nothing. That silence would one day become immortal. When Rolling Stone named Both Sides, now one of the greatest songs of all time, she endured and carried on. Yet inside her remained an emptiness named Kelly. One day, Joni and Chuck visited the home of the couple who had adopted her daughter. Holding the little girl in her arms and seeing those eyes that looked so hauntingly like her own, Joni's heart shattered all over again. But instead of fighting to reclaim her child, Joni did the unthinkable. She signed the official papers to relinquish her parental rights. The cold line in the document read simply, "The mother has left Canada for the United States to pursue a career as a folk singer." From that day on, Joni Mitchell was no longer the prairie girl she once was. She became a woman who sang to forget, to confess, and to survive. In every song, from Little Green to River, echoed the longing of a mother who missed her child but could never say it aloud. The public only heard the melodies. Joni heard the sound of her own heartbreaking. 2 years later, she left Chuck, the man she realized had only exploited her talent and vulnerability. She kept the surname Mitchell as one keeps a scar, a reminder that no one would ever control her life again. From the ashes of her broken marriage and unspoken losses, Joni Mitchell was reborn. She wrote, sang, painted, and loved with whatever was left of her soul. While the world saw a gifted artist with a crystalline voice, few knew that every song was a fragment of pain wrapped in a gentle smile and distant gaze. In an interview years later, Joni said, "I learned that pain can become art if you're brave enough not to run from it." By the late 1960s, the world was changing, and Joni embraced that change with all her heart. She had an awakening. "I realized with thrilling excitement and a touch of fear that my life was not going to follow the traditional path of my mother or my grandmother." In 1967, Joni Mitchell met Leonard Cohen, a man with sad eyes and a voice that sounded like a confession. They were drawn to each other like two souls sharing the same ancient loneliness. She was a painter who sang about broken dreams. He was a poet who wrote about love and guilt. Leonard's mother once warned him, quote, too. And indeed, their love was short-lived, a beautiful wound where blood and music intertwined. After their breakup, there was no hatred, no desperate longing. They kept mutual respect like two people who had once glimpsed each other's souls, if only for a moment. After Leonard, Joni was no longer the shy girl in love. She dove headfirst into her next adventure, this time with David Crosby, a man full of laughter, arrogance, and wild energy. They met in Florida, where the sun and sea breeze made everything seem effortless. But when love left the sunlight and returned to the cold streets of New York, Joni realized David wasn't as dazzling as he had seemed. He became clumsy, dull, and worst of all, unfaithful. David cheated, going back to his ex-lover as if nothing had happened. But instead of screaming or begging, Joni chose the only weapon she truly mastered, music. At a party, surrounded by friends and the man who betrayed her, she sat down with her guitar and began to sing the song about the Midway. The room fell silent. Everyone thought it was a new song until they realized it was a farewell woven into melody. She sang as if pulling pieces of her heart out of her chest, and when the song ended, she sang it again just to make sure he heard. Yet Joni didn't get the reaction she expected. Instead of shame or anger, David laughed, saying her breakup performance was amusing. But Joni didn't care. A little embarrassment was nothing compared to the pain of betrayal. In 1968, Joni Mitchell released her debut album, Song to a Seagull, a gentle yet powerful introduction to the world of music. There was no showmanship, no gimmickry. Joni chose to tell her story through melody and emotion. She sang as if she were in conversation with herself, as though every song were a small wound stitched together by music. That moment marked the beginning of a groundbreaking career. Since then, she's released 19 albums, sold nearly 10 million records, and won 11 Grammy Awards, numbers that barely scratch the surface of what critics call the art of truth. The press hailed her as an icon. Fans saw her as a soulmate, someone brave enough to voice their pain. Joni Mitchell never wrote to please anyone. She wrote when her heart refused to stay silent. She wrote when sadness demanded to become melody. In her songs, there was always a raw honesty rarely found in music. That's why country legend Chris Christopherson once told her, "Joni, save something for yourself." But she couldn't. To Joni, music wasn't a mask. It was survival. Each time she shared another piece of her heart, listeners found fragments of themselves within her words, those who had loved, lost, and tried to begin again. Then fate brought her to Graham Nash, a member of Crosby, Stills and Nash in 1969. They met not through words but through music. Two kindred spirits, two guitars vibrating in harmony. Graham was warm, gentle, and above all genuine in his love for her. When he proposed, Joni said yes. Everyone believed she had finally found an anchor for her wandering heart. But Joni Mitchell, like her songs, was never simple. Soon, fear crept in, not fear of Graham, but of herself. Deep within her was a haunting legacy, a family curse. Her mother had once admitted she was never happy as a wife or a mother. Her two grandmothers had shared the same fate, giving up their artistic dreams for marriage and living lives of regret. Joni saw this as a mirror reflecting her future, and she swore she wouldn't repeat that tragedy, even if it meant sacrificing love. The way Joni ended things with Graham was both heartbreaking and admirable. No fights, no tears, just a telegram that read, quote, "For love, Joni." It wasn't merely a farewell. It was her philosophy of life. Hold on less to live more freely. Yet, their affection never truly faded. When they met again, their eyes still carried something unfinished. Joni always tried to remain friends with her former lovers, but that often meant reopening half-healed wounds. Once she accepted an invitation to sail with friends in Panama, thinking it would be a brief escape after weeks of exhaustion. But as she stepped onto the deck, she was stunned to find Graham there. For a moment, surrounded by the vast blue sea, Joni smiled, wryly as if fate were teasing her. "A boat full of song material," she said, and indeed, from that heartbreak came her masterpiece, Blue. Released in 1971, Blue was more than a collection of broken hearts. From Kelly to Graham, it became one of the greatest albums in music history. For most artists, creating Blue might have been a form of healing, but for Joni, it only deepened the sorrow. And that led to the next question, or rather, the next person, who would change her life. In 1973, Joni Mitchell entered a storm of back-to-back heartbreaks. It began with James Taylor, the soft-voiced, soulful-eyed singer whose gentle exterior hid a world of addiction and turmoil. Joni loved him as if she could rescue a soul in free fall, but the harder she tried to hold on, the deeper she was pulled into the darkness with him. Their breakup not only shattered her heart, but taught her a painful truth. Sometimes love cannot save someone who is determined to destroy themselves. As she tried to heal, Joni met Jackson Browne, another musician full of passion, but also of dangerous self-regard. At first, she believed Jackson could be her safe harbor, someone who understood her through music. But soon she realized he didn't love her. He loved the reflection of himself he saw in her eyes. When Jackson left, he left behind vicious gossip, tabloid stories claiming Joni was spiraling, even hinting that she had attempted suicide. Joni responded with her trademark dry wit, "I don't know where they dig up this trash. I may be crazy, but not that kind of crazy." Strong as she was, Joni couldn't escape the orbit of powerful men drawn to her. Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson, two of Hollywood's most magnetic figures, both pursued her relentlessly. Jack respected her boundaries when she turned him down, but Warren didn't. To him, rejection was a challenge, a game of power. In a world where fame and desire blurred together, Joni became the woman who couldn't be conquered, a title that was both a crown and a curse. But Joni wasn't playing hard to get. She was simply trying to protect herself from more chaos. Unfortunately, chaos always found her. This time, it came in the form of a charming drummer named John who quickly won her heart. Their love and work became dangerously intertwined. They collaborated on music, toured together, and soon learned the hard truth of the saying, quote, 5. And indeed, it was the beginning of the end. John grew intensely jealous, especially of Joni's past lovers. One night, as Joni was talking to an old flame, John burst in, convinced he had caught her cheating. In a fit of rage, he sought revenge, and nothing is more destructive than a jealous, wounded man. John soon found someone new and flaunted the relationship in front of Joni, even during their tours together, forced to perform alongside them. Joni broke down completely. She canceled the tour and took time off to recover. But as always, she turned pain into melody. Out of heartbreak, she created music, the only way she truly knew how to understand and survive her own suffering. Entering the 1970s, Joni kept falling into toxic relationships. Her romances often began like gentle melodies, but ended in choking notes. The darkest of them was with drummer Charles Doherty, a man who made Joni suffer both physically and emotionally. His rage, jealousy, and paranoia turned love into hell. After 4 years of endurance and 3 incidents of abuse, Joni walked away. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she wanted to survive. Then, like a soft transition in a sorrowful song, fate brought Larry Clean, a young bass player 13 years her junior, into Joni's life. They married in 1982. They wrote songs together, performed together, and shared their artistic passion. Yet behind the stage lights, Joni remained haunted by her past. When she became pregnant 3 years later, joy quickly turned to tragedy. Her self-destructive habits, cigarettes, alcohol, and recklessness led to a miscarriage. The child she never got to hold left a scar that would never heal. In the years that followed, her marriage with Larry began to crack. Love, once her muse, became a chain. On Thanksgiving Day, 1992, during a cold meal filled with reproach, Larry gave her an ultimatum. Either they change or it's over. Joni, who had already changed for too many people, simply replied, "I won't change anymore." And that was it. No tears, no fury, only silence. 3 years later, in 1995, a secret Joni had hidden for 3 decades was suddenly exposed, not by her, but by an old friend. The story of the baby girl she'd been forced to give up in 1965 was sold to the tabloids. The world was stunned. Joni was devastated. She felt betrayed. Yet amid the chaos came a glimmer of light. She could finally search for her daughter. The child, now a grown woman named Corinne Gibb, born Kelly Dale Anderson, had also been looking for her birth mother. It was one of the few moments life gave Joni a miracle. In 1997, they met, mother and daughter, after more than 30 years apart. As the door opened, Joni burst into tears. She said, quote 7. But life isn't a song with a happy ending. Kellerin carried her own pain, the instability of her childhood, conflicts with her adoptive parents, and poor choices in love and life. Destiny seemed to be repeating itself, and Joni, in her attempt to be a mother, lost her way again. By 2000, things had turned bitter. A fight broke out. Words went too far. Kellerin called the police, claiming her mother had slapped her. The media tore Joni's life apart once again. The two stopped speaking for years. Once more, Joni lost her child. But this time, both of them knew the depth of that loss. As always, time became the only medicine. Years later, they slowly found their way back to each other. No public tears, only short calls and quiet messages. Joni understood that the bond between mother and child, no matter how broken, was the only thread keeping her tied to the world. Joni Mitchell's life has always been a journey between light and shadow. A musical genius who moved millions, a woman who fell and rose again through love, and a mother forever seeking forgiveness. Looking back, her life feels like her songs, beautiful, sorrowful, and so real it leaves you breathless. There is no perfect ending, only acceptance and a quiet melody echoing at the end. Like the final confession of a heart that has survived every storm. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos about Hollywood stars. See you in the next one.